On April 28, 1937, Captain George R. Donner of the freighter O.M. McFarland retired to his cabin and asked his crew to wake him when they approached port. 3 hours later, when the ship neared Ludington, Michigan, the second mate went to rouse the captain. The cabin door was locked from the inside. When they broke it open, Captain Donner was gone. His quarters were empty. The windows were sealed shut, his clothes hung undisturbed, and there was no sign of struggle. A man had vanished from a locked room on a moving ship in the middle of Lake Michigan, and his body was never found. Welcome to the Michigan Triangle. The Michigan Triangle is a roughly triangular region of Lake Michigan with its 3 points at Ludington, Michigan, Benton Harbor, Michigan, and Manitowoc, Wisconsin. Spanning thousands of square miles of deep freshwater, this zone has been the site of unexplained disappearances, bizarre navigational anomalies, and strange aerial phenomena for well over a century. Unlike its more famous cousin, the Bermuda Triangle, the Michigan Triangle sits in the heart of the American Midwest, surrounded by millions of people, major shipping routes, and commercial flight paths. Lake Michigan is the third largest of the Great Lakes, reaching depths of over 900 feet. And yet, despite its proximity to civilization, what happens within this triangle has defied rational explanation for generations. The earliest recorded mystery of the Michigan Triangle dates back to 1891, when the schooner Thomas Hume departed Chicago on May 21st, bound for Muskegon, Michigan, to pick up a load of lumber. The ship, captained by George C. Albrecht, sailed into the open waters of Lake Michigan and was never seen again. No wreckage, no bodies, no distress signal. The Thomas Hume and her entire crew of 7 simply ceased to exist. For over a century, the ship's fate was unknown. It wasn't until 2010 that divers finally located the Thomas Hume sitting upright on the lake bottom in 150 feet of water, her hull intact, with no obvious explanation for why she sank. The discovery raised more questions than it answered. A perfectly intact ship with no survivors and no explanation. But the Michigan Triangle wasn't done claiming ships. In 1921, the lumber carrier Rosa Belle was found floating upside down in Lake Michigan, her hull battered but intact. When salvage crews flipped her over, they found the ship completely empty. No crew, no cargo, no lifeboats, and no bodies. All 11 men aboard had vanished. The Rosa Belle had been refitted from a passenger steamer and was well known on the Great Lakes shipping routes. Coast Guard investigations concluded the ship had been struck by another vessel, but no other ship ever reported a collision, and the pattern of damage didn't match any known impact. The crew's personal effects were still aboard. It was as if the men had been plucked from the deck in an instant, leaving everything behind. The most catastrophic event in Michigan Triangle history occurred on June 23, 1950, when Northwest Airlines Flight 2501 vanished over Lake Michigan with 58 people aboard. The DC-4 aircraft, piloted by experienced Captain Robert C. Lind, was traveling from New York to Minneapolis when it encountered turbulence over the lake. At 11:37 p.m., Captain Lind requested permission to descend from 3,500 feet to 2,500 feet. That was the last transmission ever received from Flight 2501. Despite one of the largest search operations in Great Lakes history, involving Coast Guard cutters, Navy vessels, and civilian boats, neither the aircraft's fuselage nor the black box was ever recovered. Only small fragments of human remains and shredded seat cushions were found floating on the surface. To this day, Northwest Airlines Flight 2501 remains the deepest unsolved commercial aviation mystery in American history. In 2004, a team led by undersea explorer David Schwab of the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, along with the Michigan Shipwreck Research Association, launched a major effort to locate Flight 2501's wreckage. Using side-scan sonar technology, they mapped hundreds of square miles of the lake bottom near Benton Harbor. They found numerous shipwrecks, but never the aircraft. Valerie Van Heest, a diver and researcher with the Michigan Shipwreck Research Association, spent over a decade investigating the case and authored a book documenting the mystery. She noted that the pattern of debris suggested the plane didn't simply crash. It appeared to have disintegrated at altitude, as if torn apart by forces that don't match any known weather phenomenon recorded that night. The Civil Aeronautics Board's 1950 investigation was inconclusive, listing the cause simply as unknown. The disappearances are chilling enough. But beginning in the 1980s, a new dimension of the Michigan Triangle mystery emerged, one that pointed not to the depths below, but to the skies above. On March 8, 1994, residents across western Michigan witnessed something that would make national headlines. Beginning around 9:30 p.m., hundreds of people from Holland, Michigan to Grand Haven reported massive formations of lights hovering silently over Lake Michigan. The objects were described as cylindrical or triangular, displaying red, white, and green lights in formations that moved in coordinated patterns before vanishing over the water. Panicked citizens flooded 911 switchboards across Ottawa County. What made this sighting different from any before it was that this time, the objects were tracked on radar. The National Weather Service radar operator on duty that night was Jack Bushong, stationed at the Muskegon, Michigan facility. Bushong tracked the objects on his radar scope in real time and later confirmed in interviews that they were unlike anything he had ever seen in his career. The returns showed solid objects hovering, accelerating, and then disappearing, behavior inconsistent with any known aircraft, weather balloon, or atmospheric phenomenon. Bushong went on record stating that the objects were definitely not precipitation, not military aircraft, and not instrument error. His radar data showed objects arranged in a triangular formation that held position over the lake before rapidly dispersing. The National Weather Service quietly archived the radar data. No official explanation was ever issued by any government agency. Jack Bushong's testimony remains one of the most credible, radar-confirmed UFO encounters in American history. The 1994 incident wasn't isolated. Reports of unidentified objects over Lake Michigan stretch back decades and continue to the present day. In 1981, a Coast Guard crew near Traverse City reported a massive, luminous object descending into the lake without creating a splash or disturbance. In 2020, commercial airline pilots reported a string of bright objects in formation over Lake Michigan that were later dismissed as Starlink satellites. But the pilots insisted the objects exhibited maneuvers no satellite could perform, including sudden lateral movement and hovering. The Mutual UFO Network, known as MUFON, has cataloged over 2,000 sighting reports from the Lake Michigan region alone since 1990. Many of these describe objects not just flying over the water, but entering and emerging from it, a phenomenon researchers call USOs, or unidentified submerged objects. In 2007, a discovery on the bottom of Lake Michigan added a stunning archaeological layer to the mystery. Mark Hawley, a professor of underwater archaeology at Northwestern Michigan College, was using sonar to map shipwrecks when he stumbled upon something entirely unexpected: a series of stones arranged in a circle on the lake floor, 40 feet beneath the surface, resembling a Stonehenge-like formation. One of the stones appeared to bear a carving of a mastodon, an animal that went extinct roughly 10,000 years ago. The formation sits in Grand Traverse Bay, directly within the Michigan Triangle zone. If authentic, the structure predates known human civilization in the region by thousands of years. Hawley's discovery has never been fully excavated or officially studied by federal agencies. The question it raises is profound. What were ancient people doing in the Michigan Triangle, and what did they know about this place? Here is where the evidence converges into something deeply unsettling. Consider the pattern. Ships found intact but empty, an aircraft that disintegrated without explanation, a veteran radar operator confirming unidentified objects over the exact same waters, thousands of UFO reports spanning decades, objects entering and exiting the lake, and now an ancient stone formation on the lake floor that predates recorded history. In 2017, the Pentagon's Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, known as AATIP, was revealed to have been secretly studying UFO encounters since 2007. Former AATP Director Luis Elizondo confirmed that USOs, objects operating underwater, were a significant component of the program's research. Lake Michigan, with its extreme depth, vast uninhabited bottom, and proximity to military installations including Naval Station Great Lakes near Chicago, fits the exact profile of locations flagged by AATIP. The government has been watching these waters far more closely than they've admitted. We are left standing at the edge of the deepest mystery in the American heartland. Over 130 years of disappearances, and not one has been fully explained. A plane carrying 58 souls that the most powerful nation on Earth cannot find at the bottom of a lake. A radar operator's testimony that the government buried without comment. An ancient stone circle that no one will fund an expedition to properly investigate. And thousands of witnesses, including military personnel, commercial pilots, and law enforcement, who have seen things over and beneath Lake Michigan that science refuses to address. What is in the Michigan Triangle? What is beneath those waters? And if the government knows, why have they never told us? Some mysteries don't stay buried. Sooner or later, whatever is down there is going to surface, and when it does, the world won't be ready. The Michigan Triangle has been swallowing ships, planes, and people for over a century, and no one has ever given us a real answer. If this investigation opened your eyes to what's lurking beneath the Great Lakes, hit that like button and help more people discover what's been hidden in plain sight. Subscribe and ring the notification bell so you never miss an investigation. Because the next time those lights appear over Lake Michigan, the world deserves to be watching.